Greetings, brethren, Hausburger Donkey here, and back with the next part of the tutorial for painting an army really quickly. So the last step has been completed. As you can see, all the tunics are done. It took about, I'd say, 1.5 hours, but I will say that when you do this the first time, it probably is going to take you a bit longer. I've gotten really used to the sort of glazing technique now, so it just flows a lot quicker for me. Right, somebody requested a more neutral background than my cutting mat. This is the best I can do currently with this sort of filming setup, because I don't want to drag everything to the table every time, because, you know, this is my stand-up desk and it's also my computer desk, so this is they'll just have to do. Brown, I hope is better than the cutting mat. Anyway, so next step is going to be the leather and wood. And we're going to need 3 different colors. Now, the first one you can see here, it's a really dark brown. And I couldn't get it with just a straight paint, so... well, this is 4 paints. So I started out with leather belt. That was way too bright and reddish. So I added some dark rust to tone it down a little bit. That still was a bit too reddish, so I added track primer. But it still wasn't dark enough, so I added a few drops of black. It's really just a feeling thing. When you do this sort of thing, you want a decent contrast between the leather and the flesh areas and, you know, all the other areas that might end up sort of brownish. So I painted up already a few of the skirmishers so you can have a look. And this is kind of what I ended up with. So you can see that the leather belt has a nice contrast to the tunic. The wood has its own sort of color, which is distinct from the leather, and the wood is US field drab. And same technique as with the tunics. Let me just grab one of the strips. So we grab some of the paint. It's heavily thinned down, and then once again on the paper, just lift up the paper maybe. And on the paper we just hold it against it to soak off most of the water, just so that it doesn't flow like a wash, because we don't want that. And then you just glaze it over the leather areas. So in this case, the straps for the pectorals. Can you even see that well? And I have to be concentrated a bit because it's a very narrow area. I don't want to overspill too much. And then we have another strap down here. Just make sure that it's nice and glazed. And then the other strap. Is that even still in the camera? Nope. From the front, and the side of the strap. Most of this belt has bronze, platings on it, I guess, ornaments. So we're just gonna do the front of the belt brown. And then we have the shoes, or the sandals. On this one, these ones I forgot to paint the toes, so we're just gonna brown them over. It doesn't really matter because it's gonna be covered up by the ground clutter we'll put down in the end. And here, I've decided I'm just gonna go over the whole thing, make it all in that leather color, because I could go with a separate one, but it's really not worth it. Because in the end, it'll kind of just blend in anyway. It's just boots. Boots aren't that important. Alright, and that's all we're gonna do with the leather. The straps, the belts. I should also pull out one of the Principes, because they have the Hamata, the Lorica Hamata, and they have these sort of leather etchings around the shoulder pieces. And I'm not gonna do the glazing on those pieces. I'm gonna leave that till after I've done the metal color, and then paint it in with probably cavalry brown, just to, one, add another sort of aspect to the miniatures in terms of colors, but also to, because so I don't have to be extra careful with the metals, because when I'm going to put on the metals, it'll be, you know, it'll be messy because painting chainmail is really annoying, and so I don't want to have to be really careful around these leather parts. So I'll do them at the end as well. It's not a big deal, you know. It's just the few Lorica Hamata ones that I have. Yeah, but I'll get to that when it's the time, and then we also want to do the wood. And that's very, very simple. We just, once again, grabbed some of the field drab, and once again we wipe off most of the liquid so that we just have pigments and still a little bit of liquid. And then we're gonna glaze over the pilum shaft. We don't have to be super neat on the pilum shaft because, well, it's not really that much of a focus, and as long as you cover the whole thing and there's no white bits sticking out, it'll look fine afterwards. All right, and that is that. And I'm gonna repeat that on the whole band. Oh, let me actually, because we are also going to use this wood glaze, so the US field drab on the shields on the back, and we're just gonna very liberally and not very carefully glaze that on. It doesn't matter if you overspill on the bottom, because again, that's silver and all the silver areas will be properly painted and not glazed, so they don't need to be perfect. And again, we just want to cover all of the white, but it doesn't have to be even, it doesn't have to be perfect, because all of that together, as you can see, with I did a really, really dirty dry brush that I didn't pay much attention to at the bottom, and with the glaze on top, if you're not too neat with that either, I think that adds a really nice sort of wooden effect that is good enough, right? Because once this is glued onto the miniature, like so, boop, you're not gonna see that much of it anymore. So I'll do this on all the backs of the shields. Try not to get any of it on the front, because the front is for the other for the transfers and stuff. So we don't want to get any of the brown on there. And yeah, you just repeat that for all of the wood and the leather. And that's the end of this step. And then I'll see you again with the metal parts, which will be our first proper painting, I guess. That will include a base color, a wash, and minor highlights. All right, there you go. So this is how far we are. As I said, this took about the tunics took about 1.5 hours. The leather and wood probably the same. So at the end of that, we'll be at about 11 hours, I'd say, in total. Maybe 12. And yeah, and then we have, well, as many hours. I don't know how long it'll take actually to to do all the metal parts, but that'll be the biggest part of this, definitely. So I'll see you guys for that. Take care and see you in another video.